description. So, introduce yourself.
Sure, Doug Needham with the Michigan Aggregates Association.
Rachel Proctor, Pacific Energy.
Frank Gettle, Michigan.
Christine Alexander, Eagle.
Andy LeBaron, Eagle.
Jamel Eagle.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and read off everybody's names that's attending virtually, but I'll note that it appears as though we do not have the 9 official members present in person to be deemed an official quorum. So we'll operate slightly different as though we do not have the quorum today, but in effect, it should be pretty similar. I'm Brian Burrows, the co-chair of the Water Use Advisory Council, and today the only co-chair we have present and that you're stuck with running the meeting virtually. And let's see, I see in the order that they appear on my participants list. We have Hannah Arnett, Margaret Bettenhausen, Brianna Hammondtree, James Clift, Yun Suk Dung. Emily Fennell is also online, but in person I see. Grant Poole, John Yelich, Clay Jupery, Katie Lindstrom. I see Andrew LeBaron is also online as well as in person. Megan Napier, Megan Tinsley, Jim Milne is online as well as in person. Pat Staskevich, Rich Bowman, and Sherry Thalen and Ben Terrell. Is there anybody else attending virtually that I didn't see on my list?
Dave Maturin, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, Dave, I see you. And yes,
Oh.
I'm sorry, you were just listed as the guest. I skipped over you, Dave Maturin.
Okay, all right. Go
I do
ahead.
see it, sorry.
Also, Tom Frazier. I'm not sure if he called me or not. So,
Thank you, Tom. You know, I'm not, it's kind of weird. Tom, I see it and I see you, but for some reason, let me check. Oh, I did miss a couple of people. I also have Todd Feenstra, Tom, I see you, and Austin York. Thank you. All right, well, hey, welcome everyone. I appreciate everybody being able to attend either in person or virtual during what I know is a busy summer time of the year. We'll dig right in. We just managed to accomplish roll call, so we have attendance listed, and we'll periodically check to see if some other people join virtually and add them to the attendance list. Again, we don't have an official quorum in person, so I'm still going to ask certain things, but they won't be official motions or actions of the Water Council for those purposes. So to dig in on agenda item number 3, with that, everybody has been able to see, hopefully, the agenda as proposed. Does anybody have any additions, comments, or concerns with the agenda? I'm not seeing any online. I'm not seeing any hands or hearing anything in person. So we'll take that as consent to proceed with the agenda. And that'll move us to item number 4, which is a discussion of the minutes from the previous meeting. And Chris Alexander, will you lead us through that, or is there someone else in the room who will?
I can do that, Brian. I wanted to let everyone know we sent the incorrect version of the meeting, the draft meeting minutes out. So with the draft agenda, you have the corrected draft list. So we had, not quite all of us had a chance to offer input. So we gave you the updated draft minutes. I understand we can't we can't approve them today, but you'll have them, if you'd like, you can, you'll see the differences. There were just some typos and some additional pieces of information that were added, so.
I have just one comment. I was at the last meeting and I was shown on the text.
Yeah, and we corrected the attendance on the second version. Yeah, that was part of it. We weren't able to do that thorough
Okay.
review.
We're getting a lot of echoes. Is everybody's mic muted except Andy's? Seems to be better.
So, yeah, there were some attendance glitches and some things like that, so we took care of it, but if you could take a look at the second meeting minutes, so Sherry would have sent them out with this draft meeting minutes and agenda. Sorry for the confusion on that. When we get one, I'll be happy to walk us through the situation again, too, but if you were wondering why they were attached to there. How, Brian?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, we can't officially take any action on the minutes and formally approve them. They'll go into a pile of things that we will need to do retroactively when we do achieve a quorum at a in-person meeting. Any other questions or comments, discussion about the meeting minutes from last meeting? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forth to the public comment. This is the portion of the meeting where anybody can make comments pertaining to the agenda items and have about 3 minutes or so to make them. If anybody is interested in the room, raise your hand, and online electronically raise your hand, and we'll get to you. I'll give everybody a moment or two to raise your hands if you do want to make public comment.
No hands raised in the room.
Okay, I'm not seeing any online either.
I think your screen, you want to share your screen, it's not showing up on the meeting.
This is Frank Adawagishi, Brian. I'm about to log in. I'm in person and I'm also logging in, so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, I am still not seeing any hands raised for public comment virtually, so I think we'll close public comment and we will move on to agenda item number 6. And that is an overview of today's site visit. And I want to say I really appreciate that being arranged and the opportunity provided to us. And I'm interested in hearing it. I apologize personally for not being able to be there in person today. And we were hoping just to kind of get a higher level summary of the site visit and what was seen, and have our host or guest share anything about the site visit that you'd like all the participants virtually to know.
Let's
Frank?
see. There we go. And I'm going to turn my sound down here. I want to get rid of the echo. That might do it there, I think.
I think I'm there. Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yes.
all right. Well, we met, other than when Andy met at 8 o'clock, we met at 8:30 in the lobby of the hotel. And we had, we got on the bus there at 9, and we toured first the water tower area and then the water treatment plant at Turtle Creek Casino. We got an in-depth tour of the water treatment plant by the staff there at that facility. We then took the shuttle bus from there to the water tower area at Grand Traverse Resort. and discussed the fact that the water treatment plant from here, the wastewater goes into the city sewer. So we just saw the water production and compared the production between the two, and the fact that there's a water system that connects the two water towers that are several miles apart between Turtle Creek and Grand Traverse Resort. And that they provide drinking water to the many of the customers, non-native customers, back and forth along the line, including a Meyer 50 acres and other shopping areas that are there. After we did that, we came back to the Turtle Creek, the ballroom here at the Casino Hotel. And then we had the Public Works Director, Joe, who talked to us about some additional questions with the facilities that we saw, and then talked about the facilities that we can feel on the county and Shawnee Town, where they have a couple hundred facility housing, houses and tribal facilities, administration buildings and other things there that are all on a water and their own water tower there and also water treatment plant. So we heard all about that. And then following that, we're back here in the ballroom and Chairman Edward Royal, the average band, came and was able to address us briefly about the history of the tribe again, and then engage us in conversation about the tribal relations and answer questions from those people in attendance. That's a short, high-level analysis of what we did, and I leave it open if others want to add anything. Thank you.
We appreciate the opportunity to see this up here. That was very interesting. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, and I apologize for having to miss it. It's a unique opportunity, so thank you for providing that. I would just, before we move on, bring some note for all of you in the meeting room. James Cliff lent some guidance and said that perhaps that electronic echoing may be coming from somebody who's logged in whose microphone on their computer may not be muted. Okay, so I think we're good to move on to agenda item number 7. And that is the series of committee chair reports. And the first one up is data collection. And I can summarize probably, I'll let Megan Tinsley join in if she wants, but essentially since the last full water council where we provided an update of quite a few meetings, we have had no meetings. So there is nothing new to update for the data committee at this time. Anybody else who participates in the data committee have anything that they would want to add to that? Okay, so nothing new for data committee. We'll be trying to work to schedule a new round of multiple meetings to get onto people's calendars and pick back up where we left off last time. Is there somebody present from the models committee that could provide an update for that? I do not see Dave Hamilton at this point, but perhaps somebody else who is attending would provide a short update. And if everybody's leery, I might lean on Jim Milne.
Okay. Yeah, we're waiting to hear back from the chair of the committee. Is Dave Lush on? We talked about the work group.
I do not see him present.
Well, Dave Lush is chairing a work group looking at the 2020 recommendation for the transition probability mapping. And he's asked me, half of my staff, to give a presentation at a future meeting, which has yet to be scheduled. So that's about the extent of my knowledge.
Okay, good. And I think that Dave had mentioned that there wasn't a lot. They were in the same bucket as data committee where things are brewing, but provide pretty robust updates and discussion last meeting and not so much this meeting. So thanks, Jim. I appreciate that. We'll move ahead to new topics committee, and I do see Pat online virtually. Pat, do you have anything to update for the new topics committee?
No, we haven't met since the last meeting. So if there's any new topics anybody has, send them our way.
Excellent. And that is always a good reminder. If any of our participants or water council members do have new topics, new issues that they would like to have receive attention or explored, do not hesitate to contact Pat and the new topics committee or any of our co-chairs to make sure that we know about those so that we can properly move them along. Thank you, Pat. Appreciate it. So that brings us to the Conservation and Efficiency Committee, and I know that Emily is present. So I will lean upon you, Emily.
Everybody hear me okay? In the room now?
Yeah, reasonable.
That's weird, you're all virtual. I can't see. So just a reminder to everybody, we have our standing water conservation and efficiency committee meetings first Thursday of each month at 9 o'clock, usually by the city. So for those of you who may be interested in joining us, or just reach out to Pauline Turner or myself, and you can work those meeting notices. We've been continuing to do our monthly meetings. Took a break in August, but in our July meeting, we held a working session to debrief on a number of the past members that we had from any topics, and then review our work to see what else we still have to accomplish this year and still need some work. And then we talked about some future work that we may want to do together, some potential topics we may want to explore for future recommendations. So it's really more of a brainstorming session. So I listed a couple of things that we discussed as a group, and some of these ideas in our work plan. Some of them are from the service topics, and that's in the slide. One of them is to consider case studies that looking at communities that are implementing water infrastructure projects, identifying the water energy statements of those projects. That's something that Drew Stapleton and Kelly Green from our water infrastructure finance division and our office that had some conversation around last year. We also had a speaker in one of our previous meetings, who's Richard Barber, Frank Hooper, in our June meeting, and we talked about the opportunity on benefits of metering and being able to measure every other water that's being offered to improve increasing efficiency. So there's some recommendations and ideas that you shared with our community, but it's about a little bit for discussion to my meeting about potential private metering projects with multiple partners. Again, none of these are sort of big ideas, there's also pretty small things that we can have discussion on. The other area that other things I'm interested in spending some time on is reviewing the Alliance for Water Efficiency Service that we have to and taking a look at that report and Michigan, identifying where there may be some work that we're already involved in, addressing some of the areas that they evaluated, their policy programs in each state that relate to water conservation efficiency. And then looking at where we have some other changes that we want to do some future work, like we anticipate recommendations with that committee. And then last year, we actually had a water systems program present shared resources for that committee. That's available for one back. We also talked a little bit about identifying speakers. So you know from Pat, they can't hear anything.
It's off.
Both spots are.
laptop, speakers.
Because the owl should be not receiving our, none of us should have it.
Yeah, I just muted the computer sounds all the way down.
Okay, so it's gotta be, the computer sound's gotta be off, right, like an extra.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be there.
I'm not doing that, you know. I have my sign down there. Yes.
And just for the, viewers, just for see.
All right, now can you hear us, Brian?
I could hear you, Doug, yes.
All right, we did a test before and you didn't hear us, so we're just trying.
Let me try one more thing. Let me click the mute all. That mutes everybody but me.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, I just took myself off of mute to say yes. I can hear Jim, I heard Doug, and I heard Emily, and it is better. But I'm not sure I'm hearing anybody right this minute. I think I saw Chris maybe say something, and I didn't catch that.
Andy, when Jim muted he muted the owl as well.
We thought that might help, but is it echoing now?
Yes.
It's not as bad.
Seems
Okay.
better.
Brian,
Yes,
can you hear me? Is that Emily?
yes, I can.
I'll go ahead and try to continue my committee report out.
Yeah, do your best, Emily. I appreciate it.
I feel like I'm talking to God right now. I don't see you. All right, so we also identified topics and speakers. We're going to be identifying topics and speakers to address some of our knowledge areas under these future priorities and brainstorming around. One of the speakers we do want to invite is Carmelita Nelson, with somebody in our, I've been doing a lot of work on water conservation. She's actually the lieutenant water conservation specialist, so. Also, just wanted to remind folks that our office will be coordinating the 2023 water conservation efficiency and program assessment report. So we work with the agencies to pull that together this fall and meetings review. And then we are coming up to the 5-year program assessment requirement for release compact. So we'll be looking on that process this fall to the fall. And so wanted to give an update on some of our recommendations. We made some big progress this summer, so I'm excited. We are moving forward on the 2020 recommendations to advance water conservation efficiency through state climate, energy, and water infrastructure initiatives. So our office released a request for proposals in June for the water conservation risk management practices project. This is $50,000. The appropriation for the water supervisor board and $50,000 for the action fund. We held a webinar on July 25th to talk about that funding opportunity, and the applications are actually moving to August. Monday, August. We expect to be able to make a grant award this fall, so it'll be a long project. We start before the August. We've also made progress on the second recommendation from the committee and the legislative report that's focused on increasing water conservation efficiency practices in agriculture. And our All right, I'll go ahead and try again. Back, please. Hopefully better now. So M. Darden and
Jim, you're no longer muted and need to mute.
Better?
No, Jim, mute your laptop. And your sound.
Okay.
how's that? Okay. I read this up now. M. Darden and MSU Extension provided a final plan to the committee for review. We agreed that this is to move forward on those two positions, the MSU Extension will be hiring. Both of those positions were posted on July 18th, and applications are due August 21st. And there's going to get a start date for those positions, so that project will later this month. That is that video update. If you take any questions, I can put that here.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. And I'm sure there are questions. If anybody has any, that's okay. But if you have a lot of questions, because you didn't hear it perfectly, don't be afraid to contact Emily for some follow-up one-on-one either. Anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any online. Thank you. I guess during a little lull of work in several committees, you guys have been continuing on a lot of fronts. So thank you very much. Great report. Doug, I know you're present in the room, and if you're brave enough, would you try to give us an update from the implementation committee?
Yeah, well, it's nice to follow what Emily said, because she said 2 of her 2020 recommendations are actually being worked on. And we held a committee meeting August 3rd. And I would say, I think almost all of the 2020 recommendations are either have an RFP out or have a plan to move forward with getting staff from MSU Extensions or whatever it may be. So, I've got kind of a detailed spreadsheet. I'm not going to go into too much of it, other than just to say that as we went through our committee meeting, it was very pleasing to hear that Eagle has moving forward with starting to get some of these 2020 recommendations addressed. And I know Jim Mill in his report is going to update you on what some of those are. One of the big questions that we had was based on the 2022 recommendations, what funding do we have? How do we start to move forward with those? And so hopefully today, maybe we can get a little bit of an update as far as the 2024 budget. Do we have money in that to address some of the recommendations that were laid out in the 2022 report? So that is really all I have right now. This is not a year for a report due to the legislature, so we're just going to focus on making sure that the recommendations that we put forward are actually moving forward. That's it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Doug. Thank you. Does anybody participating in the meeting in the room or virtually have any follow-up questions for Doug? Okay. I'm not seeing any.
This is Frank. The question that I have is, you said you weren't quite sure about the funding levels. How do we determine what those funding levels are? How does that question get answered?
Well, I'm hoping maybe, through the Eagle update, or, I don't know if Cliff has any updates on that, but I mean, the budget has been adopted forward. I don't know where we stand.
I think I'll be able to answer part of that during the program update.
Yep. hopefully we'll hold that for a minute and see what we get, and then we can follow up more on that. I'm not seeing any other questions, but I will note that I see Jeremiah Asher and Mike Frederick have also joined the meeting virtually. Okay, let's just without delay, we'll move into the next agenda item, and that is a program update from Eagle, and perhaps we'll both get some implementation details, some programmatic stuff, and perhaps some of the budgetary information.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the program update for Eagles Water Use Program. Going to provide progress updates for a number of the implementing the 2020 recommendations. The Michigan Hydrologic Framework grant application is going to be on the agenda for the August 22nd State Administrative Board meeting. Eagle currently has a work plan and project schedule, but we still need to receive a project budget from MSU Institute of Water Resources and USGS. And that project schedule may need to be adjusted due to the ad board schedule, but stay tuned on that. We are developing a request for proposal, RFP, for transition probability mapping. It's currently under review in Eagle's Finance Division. As I mentioned earlier, Dave Lush asked Lena Pappas and my staff to give a presentation on this at a future Models Committee work group meeting. The RFP for updating the aquifer properties in the water withdrawal assessment tool has been sent for an IT review with DTMB. The recommendation to improve the tool's user interface is under internal review. We need to touch base with the data collection committee about the long-term planning scope of work. Remaining money may be used to increase the number of proposed stream gauges back from 12 back up to 20. We need to meet with Eagle needs to meet with USGS to have them work on a new joint funding agreement for okay, as I was saying, we need to meet with USGS and have them develop a new joint funding agreement for these stream gauges. USGS awarded Eagle 92,000 plus grant for implementing for Eagle to become a new data provider to the National Groundwater Monitoring Network. Eagle staff are developing GIS field applications to document the well locations for the National Groundwater Monitoring Network, well conditions and groundwater elevation data. We need to meet with USGS to adapt their proposed scope of work for additional monitoring wells to fill in the data gaps not covered by those National Groundwater Monitoring Network wells. And what I'm referring to there, before Ralph Hefner retired, there was a proposal from USGS to install 2 wells per county statewide. And it just makes sense to Eagle at least to fill the data gaps in the National Groundwater Monitoring Network, so target that rather than randomly put in 166 wells around the state. Let's target the data gaps and fill those first and go from there. Request for proposals for Eagle's groundwater data management system is targeted for release in the summer of 2023. Response deadline for contractor bids is in the fall of 2023. Target contract date is the first quarter of calendar year 2024. The source of the funding for Eagle's groundwater data management system, $7.1 million, is from the IT Investment Fund, or ITIF. That's a separate pot of money from the $10 million supplemental appropriation to implement the 2020 council recommendations. which creates an opportunity. There's 250,000 currently allocated to the master environmental database. Probably using inexact terminology there. But there's such an overlap between the groundwater data management system and this master environmental database. Since the data management system has its own pot of money that potentially frees up that 250,000 that was allocated to be used for something else. And what Eagle is proposing is to use at least part of that to increase the number of proposed stream gauges from 12 back up to 20, like we originally wanted to do.
That all just an internal budget. Relation.
Should be an internal budget manipulation. And the budget spreadsheet started with the $10 million appropriation. Once you subtracted all the dollar figures in the 2020 recommendations, when all is said and done, it had 117,000 left over. So added to that 250,000 would be potentially up to 367,000 available for use for other recommendations that are not currently allocated in the budget spreadsheet. Any questions on that so far before I move on?
Now that additional money could be used to help pay for those initiatives, because since they were all estimated anyway, right? So depending on how the cost for each recommendation comes in. At this point, are we gonna just hold on to that money, or do we use it for and backfill?
That has yet to be determined, but yeah, there should be some amount of slop, if you will, in the overall budget to cover cost overruns. Andy, you see any other questions in the teams?
Nope, no questions.
All right, moving on then. Okay, Aqua Bounty. As most of you are aware from previous meetings, Aqua Bounty is a aquaculture facility just over the border in Pioneer, Ohio. Ohio DNR approved Aqua Bounty's monitoring plan. Eagle submitted comments, and some of our comments were adopted. Specifically, one example is that for the monitoring wells that Aqua Bounty is proposing to install, they were initially proposing to use mud rotary drilling, and Eagle was against that, so they have agreed to use either rotosonic or Hall stem auger drilling methods, which would provide a better chance of recovering intact geologic cores. Those geologic core sections will be kept at the Aqua Bounty facility. We asked them to share a part of it with Michigan Geological Survey to put so they could have that at their core repository, but Aqua Bounty wanted them to be kept at the Aqua Bounty facility. Another item of note, Aqua Bounty has been denied access to road right-of-ways. They wanted to use that for running the piping between the well field and their facility, and between the facility and the discharge location. And there is currently a court case down in Ohio about that, so stay tuned. Just met yesterday with USGS and Eagle's Geological Services Section and Remediation Redevelopment Division about using part of this. The legislature appropriated 500,000 to USGS. predicted zone of impact from Aquabound. And potentially using Eagle's drilling rig and remediation redevelopment division to do that. So we're looking at first quarter calendar year 2024. We're doing that field drilling. Final notes, staffing change. Matt Schuff is transferring out of water use assessment unit to the municipal permits unit, still in permit section of our resources division. That vacant position will be posted and backfilled. And we're currently in a transition period while Nat's finishing out some of his current assignments. Are there any questions in the room or online? Anything? No? I'm like,
I just wanted to note that some of the more recent communications of the hydrogen are indicated that Aquabound is under construction. That's now the end of June. They're currently fundraising.
okay, I don't know if everybody heard that, but Emily was saying that they've heard that Aquabound has run out of funding and stopped work. So,
In the note from their chief, that would also indicated that they holding off on any construction. The funny part's not. I don't know what that means for this project.
we will, Water Resources Division will still continue working with USGS to implement that joint funding agreement to model the mission of Aquifer and also drill those monitoring wells in the predicted zone of influence. So,
If anyone would like to see the comments that we sent last year, sure those, we had 2 rounds of comments. Yeah, we should just,
That last comment came in a little too soft, I think, for some of us online to hear.
Brian, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, this is Chris. I was just offering if anyone on the council or participants would like to see the comment letters that Water Resources Division sent to the Ohio DNR, we're happy to share those if they're available.
Okay, that would be great. That would
Can
be
we put
great.
those, can we put those open file through the Water Use Council?
You can put them on the website.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
maybe the website.
Okay.
Is that what
Okay,
you
that's-
need?
Yes, whatever, yes.
John, you have your hand raised, or do you have a question also?
And no, I did. I was just gonna ask Jim, was he gonna give an update on Well Logic, or did he want me to do it?
we've got you under item 11, John.
Okay, no worries. Open comments, okay.
I had one question. Hopefully, I don't want to tie up much time with it, but I've heard recently about a revival of the aquaculture facility proposed in the Muskegon area, which I know had sort of popped up in the past and then kind of didn't go through. Is there any official permit request for that or registration request pending for that operation again currently?
They do have an active registration, so they reduce their withdrawal amount to where they no longer require a water withdrawal permit. So they are registered at a different property, abandoned the original site where they had originally applied for water withdrawal permit. They abandoned that and the site entirely, so they have moved on somewhere else. I haven't heard how close they are, if they're making more progress, but they do have registration for new.
Okay.
Within the year. 8 ago.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Jim, is that it for the Eagle update, or were you or James going to try to speak at all to what we know about the budget?
That's about my pay grade, but James, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I can give you information that will lead to questions that I won't be able to answer. So we'll start there. So there are, in the budget, there is one line item for groundwater data and collection of $15 million. It's a one-time item. But I'm not exactly sure, kind of who all that's going to, but again, it is designed to kind of support this IT system that Jim mentioned. And he did say, and we did get approval, there is a board within the state of Michigan that basically has to approve any kind of IT upgrades. And Eagle was awarded $7.1 million for that groundwater data system just recently. So we know that money is now secured. And then on top of that, I think Water Resources Division got $2 million for groundwater data collection. So 2 pots of money, very sizable sums, to kind of improve data collection and make sure that we can kind of gather it all up, and the money for the backbone of the system that's going to house it all. So all good news.
And that being said, Teresa Seidel, the Water Resources Division Director, did encourage the water use staff to think outside the box and do some brainstorming about budget and FTE asks, kind of our wish list, which we provided to Teresa, and also had some input from Sarah Pearson over in Drinking Water Division contributed to that. So that's been forwarded up the chain for discussion. Both FTE needs and also equipment and other.
So what Jim
budget.
what Jim is talking about now is, no sooner than the governor inks the last budget, we start developing next year's budget. So we have already started the process of developing fiscal year 25 budget and are asking for input from the divisions.
Is there, and this may fall into one of those to be determined that you can't answer, but out of the line item 15 million, is there any probability that some of that may be usable towards 2022 recommendations, or no, that is really going to be encumbered in projects that are separate from the 2020, and we'll have to kind of work more effectively next year to try to get those 2022 recommendations funded?
Yeah, sorry, can't answer the overlap question. So we'll try to get you more information. If we get some, we'll share it prior to our next meeting. I know our gap between meetings is a little longer now, so if we get some better detailed information, we'll share that.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? And while I'm looking, Jim, is there anything else with the Eagle program update today, or was that it?
That's it.
Okay. Any questions in the room for Eagle?
Oh.
Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any hands raised online either, so we will go ahead and move forward to the next agenda item. Thank you guys very much for the update all around. Appreciate it a lot. Item number 9 is just calling out the next couple of meeting dates. We have October 10th and then December 12th scheduled. Those will both be at Constitution Hall unless some member has a desire to host a meetings in another location. If you do, contact us. Otherwise, we'll probably land back at Constitution Hall for both of those. And probably within the next month or so, when the executive committee gets together, we'll start the process of identifying the 2024 meeting dates so that people can get those on their calendar and have them secured before calendars get horrible. Any questions about future meeting dates? Okay, not seeing any. We'll go ahead and we'll move to the agenda item number 10. All right, my update here is that we have an executive committee that meets just about monthly in between the full council meetings, just to try to make sure that we put the agendas together. We receive stuff from members about different topics, desires to present. We just sort of try to do coordination and management of making sure that the meetings happen in an organized fashion. And quite some years ago, Tom Zimnicki, who was on this executive committee, left the Water Council for a change of employment. And we failed to really ever replace that as another member of the executive committee. So we have one just member of the executive committee that is vacant. And last full council meeting in June was Brian Eggers, last meeting as chair. And he's kind of retired from this and is no longer active with us. So right now we're also down one co-chair, and as we were planning for this meeting, it popped up that Laura couldn't be there and I was going to struggle to be in person, and that put a little emphasis on the fact that we are a little low one on co-chairs, and we are a little low on the XCOM overall. And we're not quite at the point of trying to redo official nominations or elections for co-chairs yet, until we get all of the new reappointments done. You saw, I think a lot of you saw that the governor has made her reappointments. So there's about about a third of the positions are taken care of, but we are still waiting on the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader to do theirs. And so we're not there. At some point, we would like you to all know that when these appointments are in place and we know all the new faces and everybody is official, we'll try to do this executive committee and co-chairs in a more official way and have that take place, and be in effect for the next 4 years. But in the meantime, we thought it perhaps beneficial to see if any of the Water Council members were interested in filling in on the XCOM or as a co-chair for what could be a month, it could be a couple of months, until we get all the reappointment process taken care of. And so we tried to send out a note about that. And for today, I would say if we don't get any response, that is okay. We can table it and we will limp along and conduct our business just the same. We'll figure it out. But we wanted to invite here at this agenda item anybody to raise their hand and speak up if they'd like to fill in for a short amount of time as part of the execcom. So I'll pause and see if anybody does want to perhaps raise their hand for a short stint. With the XCOM, either as a co-chair or as a, I see that, as just a member of the XCOM. So Mike, I see your hand.
Yes, I am not interested in the leadership position. I did want to make a comment about the Speaker and the Majority Leader's nominees. I know that the Speaker of the House has submitted at least 2 or notified the governor's office of at least 2 appointments. We have asked them for a formal letter just saying, hey, you're officially reappointed, but until then, we haven't seen anything. But I know that they have received requests for at least 2 of the 4 that they are allowed to reappoint. So for the Speaker of the House, I can't speak for the Majority Leader, but that's what little information I have that I can share.
Great, thank you.
Right. Thank you. I will take my hand down. I think I took it down, maybe not. Do this correctly.
All right, and then I see a guest had raised their hand. I think that was Dave.
Right, hopefully I'm still not a guest, but I just got reappointed by the governor. I'd be interested in your member position, not a co-chair position, but I guess it would be Zimnicki's slot.
Yeah, great. Excellent. Excellent, thank you. Anybody else? Pat?
I'm not a long-term solution, but because I'm trying to replace myself eventually with some subs, but I have helped out in the past, and I'd be happy to help you and Laura out on a short-term basis until we get a new slate of officers.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both. Is there anybody else that's interested? If
Brian?
not, yes. Is that Chris?
Yes. Can you clarify, Pat offered to help co-chair or tri-chair?
Yes, that's how I interpreted that. He offered to help, and Dave was interested in helping out on the XCOM. Pat's been on the XCOM for many years in the past, and if it's okay, Pat, I would love to have. And again, if there aren't others, but I would love to kind of tuck you into a co-chair, temporary co-chair position, if that's okay.
Yeah, that is what I was intending, and like I said, I'm not sure if it's the best fit long-term, but I'm more than happy to help fill the gap.
Excellent. We are really just looking for, a very temporary thing. We know that we're sort of in a little bit of a limbo, and we do promise that when all the appointments are taken care of, that we'll redo our governance officially and have an open process and make some permanent positions. So you're not committing at this point to anything permanent.
Sounds good. Thanks.
And honestly, this is sort of a little bit of a weird governance position anyways, right? We're talking about this in between being able to officially do it for the next 4-year period. Our bylaws don't speak incredibly detailed about every procedure necessary, and we do not have quorum today. So the best I think I can do right now is I'm going to ask one more time if there's anybody else participating that might have any interest. And if you do, please raise your hand now. And if not, I guess by consent, does anybody have any objections with the way that I'm going about trying to temporarily fill some of the management body for the short duration until we get reappointments done? If you do, please speak up.
Brian, and I'll just say, I think you're doing a wonderful job.
Okay, thank you, Frank. I don't want to step on any toes, and I don't like getting governance wrong, but I'm trying to be practical, and we could use a few more people helping out. So if anybody else does have any concerns, please voice them, and you can even voice them privately to me after the meeting by email. But I'm going to take on this meeting now the lack of opposition as kind of informal consent to proceed. And Dave and Pat, we will get back to you and we'll loop you in pretty much immediately. Thank you both.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Thank all of you for helping me get through that painlessly. Any other thoughts, questions, or discussions, comments about that agenda item? Okay, not seeing any. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 11, which is open comment. So as a reminder, this is where anybody, members or non-members, the public, anybody participating can provide some, short, under 3-minute comments about anything, whether it's on the agenda or not. Of course, when I say anything, it hopefully is water withdrawal related. But we will start that. Please, somebody let me know if any hands are raised in the room, and I will look on the virtual list. Oh,
Brian,
John, you,
Brian, this is Jim Milne. John Yelich has sent in some slides for a progress update from Michigan
Perfect.
Geological Survey.
perfect. Let's do that. And then if anybody else does desire to make open comments, go ahead and virtually raise your hand and we'll get to you after that. But John, please, go ahead.
Jim, you have my slides?
Your first
All right.
slide's up.
All right, I'm bad. I can't speak in 3 minutes, so let's see how fast I can go. Okay, so anyway, thanks a lot. This is an update on the WellLogic project. We call it the triage project. Go to the next slide, please. And you can click right through and I'll just go through. So the triage project was WellLogic validation location, input of the scan records that began in 2018. The WellLogic database began in 2003 and estimated wells in 2018 was about 560,000 wells in WellLogic. Eagle DEQ had scanned historical well logs from the 50s to 2003, and that was estimated at about 700,000. So the total project in 2018 was 1.26 million wells that were either in WellLogic or the data was available for everybody to use. MGS began location validation, inputting the scan logs. And then of course we found out after we started, there were a significant number of scan logs already input into WellLogic, and MGS then validated the data on those logs to make sure that they were consistent with the data sheets that were available. So those of you that haven't looked at scan logs, you've got the scan log. We are inputting all the data that's readable on those logs. Next one, please. So this is just an overview. Jim, I apologize. This is just to show us areas of priority. And of course, you've got the oranges and the reds in there as far as the areas of water withdrawal assessment tool stresses. And so this is to get us the information about where we need to be doing the WellLogic data to have it done. Next one, please. This is, you can click through, there's 3 sidebars on there. This is the mapping that MGS has done. Back one, please. That MGS has done. This is by county. Those red dots represent the PFAS location sites. In other words, where there are PFAS identified, where there's a potential for a PFAS contamination, either in groundwater or surface water. And then the colored grays and the oranges are the areas that the MGS, this Geologic Survey, has conducted mapping. And the ones that are orange colored represent both surface and subsurface data, where we've got subsurface data that we have because of the borings, coring, other sampling that we've done below the surface. And the yellow is Muskegon County, which is the next county that we're going to be mapping coming up in 2024. But this was part of the priority, was being driven not just by the Water Division, but also by MPART. And then the third party was the Aggregate Association that we had reached out to them 4 years ago to ask where they were at. And that's not on this map. That just happens to be in a summary that I'm going to give later. Next one, please. So this just is a summary now of the highest priority ones in 2023. And we've got the ones that are Eagle, if you will, as well as MPART, as well as the Water Division. So some of them coincide as being duplicates, others are singular. Okay. So this is the summary table that some of you have seen before. And what I want to point out here is that the blue colors on here are the county maps that Michigan Geologic Survey has completed or have been completed since probably 92, something like that, when we started doing mapping. So we've got 8 counties that have been done: Kalamazoo, Ottawa, Cass, St. Joe, Calhoun. Berrien was done by the USGS. We've got Kent County, and Allegan is just about ready to be published in the next 4 months. Ottawa was published in January. Ottawa County was published in January. We'll be working on Muskegon. Then we're going to be going over and elaborating more subsurface data in Kent, as well as Montcalm, and then moving on to other counties as we talk with the Water Division and MPART and the state itself. And of course, the aggregate companies on the right side, most of those are primarily on the eastern part of the state, but as you can see that they also have Kent, Ottawa, Montcalm, Ionia, Allegan, and Barrie. Okay. Next one. Okay. 2 more clicks. And of course, our mapping program has had the support of the United Tribes. And so that was a recommendation that was made back in 2018. And of course, that's to map the water resources, but any of the mapping that we do, particularly on surface, near surface, and then subsurface, one of the components that's there is what's the surface material, And then how deep does that surface material go? And one of those components is aggregates. And so that is one of the derivatives that we do produce. We show where we've got aggregate resources in the county maps. It's a separate map product that we produce. And then at the time we had 20 to 25 counties identified. And as I said, we've got 8 that are completed. And so what I just want to say is that we'll be meeting with all the state departments to present what we've got right now, but also to talk about where we see the priorities that mapping is needed, particularly the geologic mapping. Okay. So go ahead and click through. So what we're really proud of is this program started in 2018. Those of you that did not know, this originally started with about 6 or 7 students working at computers here at MGS in Kalamazoo. When COVID hit, that was the bad news, but it was also the good news. It allowed us to convert from working at workstations to actually being virtual. So we had up to 30 students working for us on this project. And the project is one where each student had to be able to, each candidate staff person had to show that they had the skills, the computer skills, as well as the quote unquote brain thought process to go ahead and review data as it was seen on the screen, correct it, and then go ahead and input the data correctly, find the right locations and other things. We had our project manager was Evie Majuria, who was originally started. She's now been replaced by Sophia White, but Evie did an excellent job in laying this project out and doing the training programs. And what we've done on the training programs is we were able to do video training to where anybody who was not doing well, if they couldn't improve their skills in 2 weeks, they were let go. If they had poor quality or anything else, they were let go, because if training was going to be the thing, we did do it. Every week we had a work, if you will, session, open session where people could come in and ask questions. They had videos that they could review. But candidly, this important is the only database that the state has right now. And we felt that it was important that if the people couldn't do quality work, they had to be let go. We're at a point where we have 750,000 wells that have now been input, validated, or completed in the system out of the 1.26 that was estimated. So it's a tremendous number right now. I'm going to show you a map. But what happened in Q2 that was different was that we had a bunch of local counties that we were working in. And we had 10,000 logs that had already been input by somebody else, whether or not they were health departments, they were somebody else. We had 10,737. We had 100% errors on those where they did not input the correct data. So this is one of the reasons that we had the QA program that we've got, but this was very troubling this month. We don't know why or what the reason was, but there just were a lot of incorrect wells that were already input there, which meant that if people looked at them, they were looking at the wrong data, whether or not it's the location, whether it was the water level, whether it was the lithologies that were posted by the driller, whatever it was, there was something wrong. Okay, go to the next one, please. So this is the monthly summary that we did, and you can see the counties. Eaton had 100%, even though it was a small number. We had Newaygo County, Branch County, Roscommon County, and Clare County all had 100% of the data that was input incorrectly. And so that's what we're looking at. Excuse me, I'm looking now. It was actually Crawford County, Midland, and Eaton that were the high 94 to 100. Then we had Roscommon County, and then we had Clare, and Cass County was also another one that had a bunch of incorrects. And then we had 97 in Leelanau County, and 95% was in Van Buren County. Don't know why, but the data that was input, whoever input the data was not correct. And that represented 10,000, as I said, and then we input 20,000, almost 21,000 of the scan records from those counties. And so we had a high volume that we were doing. But remember this, is that it's a slow process to input all the data. It takes almost 6 per hour, so that they essentially are not working at warp speed when they're trying to input all this data, but they have to review even the old ones. So that amount of time to review the old ones takes away from actually putting in the data from the new ones. So anyway, next slide. This is a summary of the whole project. Everybody can have access to these slides if you want. I'm not going to go over this, but we had the total amount completed. That included all the well logic validations as well as the scan logs input. We had 780,000. that we've completed as of Q2, which was the end of June 30th of this past year. Okay. This is a summary map that we have, and this is on our website. What this shows the counties that we've done. We've got 21 counties that are completely done as far as the location validation. These are the wells that are already in WellLogic. And so we've validated 21 counties completed, 43 are initiated that we're doing. And this also provides a table about the number completed in those particular counties. The next one is for the digital input. And because this takes so long, just a half step back is that we can validate WellLogic wells at about 40 per hour. So the staff that are working, and they're working anywhere from 25 to 40 hours a week, that they get an average of 40 WellLogic wells per hour that they can do. So again, high efficiency. We validate whether or not they're doing it well because we have somebody testing all of that, and we provide that information to the water division, to Sarah Pearson and her group. This is the digital input. These are the scan logs, the historic logs. And if anybody has looked at them, many of them are copies of copies. They are mostly handwritten, and it's very hard to read. And that's why the number that they do is about 6 per hour. So we've got 26 counties that we have all the logs, all those green that are on there represent 100%. 26 counties that all the digital logs that were in the database are input in those counties. And we get calls from the state from time to time to look at different areas where they need to have data put in. And this is where we do the historic logs, scan logs, get those in, and also look at the WellLogic where they need to have it for any work that they're doing. And we have 46 counties that have been initiated. So this is just a quick summary of where we are as far as the WellLogic, putting them all in. Okay, next one, I think we're done then. Yep, we're done. So anyway, any questions? We are expected to be done with this in 2025. I just wanted to say that we're expected to be done with all of it in 2025.
Todd Feaster has a question. Go ahead, Todd.
Yes.
Yeah, John, I wanted to clarify, when you were talking about validating the data, you're talking primarily about well locations for one, and then matching up the lithologies perhaps that are handwritten to make sure those are transcribed correctly into WellLogic. But you're not actually verifying the lithology that was drilled through. Is that correct?
No, it's what's written in the record. That's correct. Good question, Todd.
So follow-up question on that then. If you can't answer, don't answer it. But if there's that many errors on location data, how confident are you that the well logs are highly accurate when it comes to the lithology?
It is, well, let me back up half a step. That's why in 2014, why I started the drillers training program. And correct. That's why I wanted to make sure that the drillers were inputting the data correctly and consistently across the state. And that's been embraced by the Well Drillers Association, and we've been doing it annually, except for 1 year in COVID. We've been doing it annually, but that's a good question, Todd. It was to try and make it consistent so that the drillers were inputting the data consistently about the terms. And generally, there's only 10 or 11 terms that are used, even though there's 180 in a database. There's only about 10 or 11 that they use, but we actually have them look at core and then log it in cuttings. In other words, they look at samples in a tray, then they have to describe it, and then we show them what the core looks like so that they can see what it is. And they all of a sudden realize what the issue is about paying attention to what they see in their samples when they're drilling. I hope that answers your question.
I'm fully supportive of that. I think that's a great idea. I think your work on that's been really good. I think my question is getting more towards, if we're going to use the WellLogic data set to do transitional probability or build models off of the lithology, what degree of confidence do we have that the lithologies are correct when we use the whole data set?
I'll approach that the way the survey does, because we generate cross sections in our mapping. We look at those water well logs to confirm our geologic information that we have. And some of it is from our drilling, and it's not a great deal. Second part is from RRD sites, remediation redevelopment sites, because most of those have been logged by a geologist, and so that we have that information, so that we can say that this is the type of geologic material that we see in the subsurface. There are many logs that we see that are in question, and these are all the historic logs, again, because of the training. So using all the water well logs in any kind of geo framework, I don't agree with that, because even though we have a very limited number, the lithologies on many of those are not accurate enough to really use in what we're trying to do with this model.
I really didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I appreciate your candid answers. Thank you.
And that's because that's what we have to do when we're preparing our cross sections. We have to look at it in reality and say, is this real information or not? And there are a great number of them that we exclude because it's not relevant. It's not the right kind of information that we know is in that area geologically.
Appreciate it. Thank
Great.
you, John.
Buddy, Sebastian has a question. Go ahead.
Yes. You're muted.
Hey, John. Thanks. Todd kind of asked the question. The second half of his is how accurate are you seeing the descriptions in the WellLogic system, not the scan logs, but in the WellLogic system, pre and post your training? Is it getting better? Because I do agree with you that just looking at well logs, anytime we're looking at regulating an area with a watershed, and we're not doing it justice. Have you seen a difference, or have you not compared that?
The quick answer is I have, in the context of the counties that we're working in right now, where we're looking at the WellLogic logs, and that's Allegan, Ottawa, Cass County we just finished up, so that there is a difference. I'm just hoping that because we are doing this with all the drillers who come from throughout the state, that we are going to get better, and everybody else is. And my belief is that nobody wants to have bad data, because when I look at it, I question it. I think when the well drillers look at it too, they question it too, because sometimes they have to rely on that as being the only information that they're bidding on a well. So my bottom line is I think it's getting better, buddy, and that's the reason that I've embraced this. And one of the things that we didn't do this year, and it was because of just other logistical things, we do have the funding in the Water Use Council to go ahead and do the training geographically in different parts of the state during the winter when the drillers are not that busy. But what I did know, and correct me if I'm wrong, any of the drillers that I talked to, everybody was very busy this past year, throughout the year.
Everybody's crazy. We're all crazy busy.
I don't know if it's
Sarah Pearson from Eagle, you have a question too. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. And yes, thank you, John, for being our teammate in WellLogic. So WellLogic is in our drinking water well construction program. And I wanted to let everybody know that we are supplementing the work of John's team. I've got a couple of contractors, so anything that John's team identifies as a problem log, I've got a couple of contractors who are taking a deeper dive on those and trying to verify the locations, reaching out to health departments, reaching out to the drilling contractors to find out where some of these logs are. Additionally, I think that it's fantastic that you're doing the training for the lithologies and descriptions. And I would just like to say I would love to see that as a certification for the water well contractors as something that they can hold up and say that they have passed, and would invite discussions on that.
Thank you. Excellent. Are there any other open comments? Any in the room? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. We don't need to make an official motion because we don't have an official quorum. But if it is all right with everybody, the meeting shall adjourn. Again, thank you all for making the effort to at least be on here virtually. Frank, thank you for all of your effort and partners in putting together the on-site visit and the meeting room. And be well until our next meeting, everyone.
Frank, thank you. And I have 2 drilling rigs working right now, so I couldn't get up there.
Understood. It's a busy time of the year and open calendar days are very difficult, but thank you, everyone. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as far as the people. Are you back, take you back, you reached out, I've reached out, there's gonna see. People work at the department. That was a point to this.
Have a list.